Thank you very much, Andreas, for inviting me to give the presentation concerning noise pollution health impact and redox regulation. And from the beginning, I'd like to thank you for organizing the EXPOHEALTH meeting and also the SSR meeting. I know how much stress this causes, and I think you did an excellent job. So I want to talk about how did the cardiology department get involved in noise research, which is pretty unusual. Talk a little bit about mechanisms of endothelial vascular dysfunction. And I want to present you some translational noise research in humans and experimental animals. And I must say, I'm a big fan of animal experiments because I'm doing this for 40 years, starting with dogs and then hamsters and rabbits and rats, and at the end now mice, and the data translational aspects were always perfect. So the question is, does short-term noise exposure affect vascular function, the importance of nighttime noise, and the crucial role of inflammatory cells? So that's our group a few years ago when I still was the chair of cardiology. And where's the pointer? You see here Andreas Diver, head of molecular cardiology, our epidemiologist Omar Hahat, and the biologist Marin Kuntic and Matthias. So quite powerful group, and you see it from the literature that we are publishing very efficiently. So how did the Department of Cardiology drop into the noise research field? And I think the key point was 1st of June 2006. So Germany's World Cup summer fairy tale, and the same time, on the same day, we were moving within Mainz, just 1 kilometer more to the right. And the problem was that we had this, better I can start it. This was going directly over our house, and you know, June was just incredible. We had almost 5 million passengers, a new ever high, and hundreds of flights day and night. And so we had stress, couldn't sleep, and decided immediately to move out of our new house. And which was much more important, we decided to get involved into noise research. And I'm pretty sure that this was a trigger for MARKOPOLO, because then from this story, actually everything was developed. So concerning noise pollution, there was not very much published until 2006. So the topics, noise pollution and CVD, had 50 publications, and now until 26. We have now around 500, and the guy being responsible for this great development was Wolfgang Babisch from the European Environment Agency. And actually, he was bringing up a noise stress concept, and so he was actually proposing to concept a direct pathway, which means we have very high decibel levels, up to 100. This will lead to hearing loss, and the indirect pathway, which means disturbances of activities and sleep, and this causes annoyance reactions characterized by stress. So you get the activation of the sympathetic nervous system, and you get increase in cortisol levels. If you have this for a while, you create your own cardiovascular risk factors. So blood pressure goes up, blood lipids go up, and glucose levels. And you have this for years, you will get your manifest cardiology disease. So Andreas showed the global burden of disease data, and it was very disappointing that there's a blind spot, and this is noise. Actually, noise is not mentioned. And so I was very happy when the European Environment Agency was publishing the report last year in June in Brussels, noise, the overlooked pollutant. And if we check now the burden of disease just for Europe, it's pretty impressive that 20% of the population is exposed to noise levels higher than 55 decibel, which means at the level where the WHO is proposing that we have health impacts. So there are 17 million people having annoyance reactions, 5 million people are being sleepless. Then we have almost 70,000 cases of premature death. Then we have 50,000 cardiovascular diseases, 22,000 more diabetes cases, and very importantly, the kids are involved heavily. So more than 500,000 are having reading difficulties, which means the cognitive development is impaired. Then we have behavioral issues, and also 270,000 more overweight. So in 2011, we got a new runway in Frankfurt, and now the aircraft are going directly over my house. And then, as I said, enough is enough. And I was sending actually Askan Warnholz, when we're starting in 2011 translational research, to Matthias Basner, the German Aerospace Center, asking him to help us to set up experimental conditions to measure the impact of noise on vascular function. So Askan then brought back the information that we can use the aircraft noise from Düsseldorf Airport. We can expose mostly medical students with an MP3 player to this aircraft noise, 30 or 60 noise events per night, 60 decibel peak pressure level, mean sound pressure level 43 to 45. And we had a polygraphy device which allows us to derive heart rate and blood pressure. And on the right-hand side, you see how we measured vascular function. We determined flow-dependent dilation, which means, like you can see here, you have a baseline diameter of the brachial artery of 4.5 millimeter. Then we make an occlusion for 5 minutes, open the cuff, get an increase in flow-dependent dilation, which is around 10%. So we measured endothelial function before and after noise exposure. So these were the results. And of course, we were excited to publish this in the European Heart Journal. And you see here the control flow-dependent dilation. And then in response to 30 or 60 noise events, you see, like saying, a dose-dependent decrease in FMD. And usually when we get an acute endothelial dysfunction, we give vitamin C 2 grams per orally and repeat these measurements 2 hours later. So this was a huge improvement, indicating that oxidative stress is important for causing endothelial dysfunction. Then we see an increase in adrenaline levels, sleep quality goes down. And importantly, we see in plasma after one night of noise, increase in nitrotyrosine levels, isoprostane levels, interleukin-1 beta levels, and interleukin-18 levels. So this is a pretty powerful result. Of course, we checked in medical students, but also in patients with coronary artery disease. This was also done by Frank Schmidt. And you see here that 60 noise events decreased flow-dependent dilation. Here we see a significant increase in blood pressure, just 5 millimeter mercury, but we know that this is also a pretty significant effect. The sleep quality was going down, and when we compared the deterioration of endothelial function in healthy subjects versus patients with coronary artery disease, you see that the deterioration of flow-mediated dilation is much stronger when you have already vascular disease, which is a, let's say, normal reaction. And then we had a beautiful editorial from John Dienfield proposing, which was actually also our concept. When we have aircraft noise, we get increase in stress hormone release, increase in blood pressure. We get the endothelial dysfunction. He calls it here activated endothelium. And we get an activation of superoxide producing enzymes. So he was writing here the NADH, NADPH oxidase. This was that time the NADPH oxidase called. And the superoxide reacts with nitric oxide for 2-peroxynitrite. And then we have less NO, which means less vasodilation and more vasoconstriction. So coming now to translational research in animals, because we have a very potent, powerful lab here with Andreas, then we said, okay, let's do some animal experiments. And this is the experimental setup. You have here the loudspeakers, here the animal cages. And we provided aircraft noise around the clock for 1, 2, and 4 days. Maximum sound pressure levels 85, higher than it was before in our humans, and the mean decibel level of 72. And these were the results published 2 years later. Then you see, as expected, an increase in blood pressure, systolic and diastolic blood pressure, mean blood pressure in response to 4 days of noise. Noradrenaline goes up, dopamine, Ang2, and also, what is this, serum adrenaline. And it was very exciting to see that our paper was highlighted in Nature, this first animal model studying the molecular mechanisms of transportation noise. So this was really a big honor. So these are the other results. Endothelial function tested in organ chambers. You take the aorta and stimulate with acetylcholine. 1 night of noise, shifting the dose response significantly to the right, and I must say it goes completely parallel. So in humans, we have one nighttime noise, one night of nighttime noise, and we get endothelial dysfunction. We see the similar in mice, so the perfect going parallel. You see the NO signal, INTTC methodology, which was developed by Kleshov in our laboratory, that the NO signals were going down significantly. When we have more superoxide and less NO, or if they react together, you get peroxynitrite, and this causes tyrosine nitration of proteins. And you see this brownish color here, just 1, 2, and 4 days, dark brown color, which means high oxidative stress. And when we have oxidative stress, you get an increase in endothelin 1 expression, which means more vasoconstriction. So the important point is, where is the superoxide coming from? We have two superoxide sources. The one is the NADPH oxidase, which was the vascular NADPH oxidase, endothelial cells and smooth muscle cells, discovered by Kathy Grindling, 1994, published in Circulation. And we have, of course, the macrophages, the isoform NOX2, which makes the oxidative burst, and that's causing more oxidative stress. So the question is, what is more important from these sources? And of course, we have an uncoupled nitric oxide synthase. In 2000 to 2003, this was an incredible successful time for our lab, because we were showing for the first time uncoupled nitric oxide synthase in hypercholesterolemia with Matthias Oelze, in smoking with Thomas Heitzer, N2 hypertension with Molnau, and in setting of diabetes with Uli Hink. And this was always the methodology. We make a dose response curve before and after diabetes initiation. It's a table, unfortunately, but you have to believe me that we get endothelial dysfunction. So ED50 and maximal relaxation was strikingly impaired in diabetic animals. But when we check for eNOS expression, it was strikingly up. So increased eNOS expression, endothelial dysfunction. And when we measure nitric oxide in vascular tissue, we see it's going strikingly down. So there must be a problem with the NO synthase. And actually, one of the topic mechanisms discovered by Chase Twyer's group was that you get an glutathione of cysteine groups. Here you can see that here's the reductase domain, and when you have oxidative stress, two cysteine residues are getting glutathionated, and this at the end leads that the electron is not transferred to the oxygenase domain to get nitric oxide. It's diverted to oxygen, making superoxide. So this is the uncoupling process, and Matthias actually could nicely show that this process is achieved over 4 days of noise exposure. He also showed strong increase in MDA, interleukin levels increased in plasma. Very importantly, NOX2 was strongly upregulated, and NOX1 in endothelial cells, smooth muscle cells, was unchanged. So this is this actually was the question done by Svenja Koloshin in the next study, where we try to answer here these two questions. Is sleep phase nighttime aircraft noise more harmful than the wake phase? And is NOX2 the key enzyme driving noise-induced ROS formation? So there were some clinical data showing that nighttime noise is in particular damaging. So this was a multi-airport study in Europe. And what you can see is that with increasing decibel levels, you get an increase in blood pressure. And this increase in blood pressure was significant when we had nighttime noise. It was not significant when we had daytime noise. So there was a huge difference between nighttime and daytime noise concerning cardiovascular consequences. Many other clinical studies also showed that pattern. And when we exposed our animals, the mice, during the day, because they sleep during the day, but I still call this nighttime noise, the blood pressure is higher when you had nighttime noise. You see a huge increase in endothelin expression when you had nighttime noise, not daytime noise. Increased eNOS uncoupling, much more pronounced when you have nighttime noise. And you also see endothelial dysfunction when you give noise during the sleep phase. You get significant shifts to the right. Nothing happens when you have daytime noise. So all the consequences, the pathophysiological consequences, are linked to sleep disruption. So how about the inflammatory cells? We were using GP91 FOX knockout to knock out NOX2. And here you can see endothelial dysfunction caused by noise was completely wiped out when we take the knockout. I wanted to hear this for the first time. You can completely wipe out endothelial dysfunction. You get rid of oxidative stress in plasma, and you get rid of inflammation. So really powerful approach to avoid noise-induced cardiovascular consequences. And so let me summarize my talk. So environmental noise exposure, this is just aircraft, but we also have data concerning railway and road noise. Repeated overflights in the night, sleep disturbance, one of the most important mechanism causing vascular dysfunction. This is characterized by oxidative stress, endothelial dysfunction, more NOX2 activation, and also eNOS uncoupling. And this, of course, increases the risk for future cardiovascular disease. And this is very important. Noise is not only annoying, it's a biological stressor with cardiovascular implications. Thank you very much for your attention.